What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and in this video I'm going to be discussing 5 harsh truths that you need to come to terms with as a natural. Now, we have a bit of an issue in our hands in that we are in a steroid pandemic. Kids as young as 18, 19 are jumping on gear, and I believe the main reason for that is because their expectations are not properly managed by the fitness industry. They sell you these big lean physiques, some of our favorite influencers and celebrities, and tell you that if you buy said program in 3 to 5 years of training and eating like said person, you are going to look like them. But the reality is, you can do every single thing they're doing and you will look nothing like them because you are not taking steroids. Now, of course, after people waste their time and money trying to look like said influencer, when they don't, that level of disappointment, I believe, is what leads to steroid use. And so what I'm hoping to do in this video is clear up some of those myths and put you guys in the best place to make the right decisions. Now, when I decided to do this video, I thought about going through a list of influencers and celebrities that were blatantly lying about their steroid use, but I decided against it for 2 reasons. The first is that we could literally be here all day, like it is rife, as in north of 97% of all the physiques that you look up to are on steroids and are lying to you. And the second thing is that these guys are on such lucrative contracts that there is absolutely no incentive for them to come out and tell the truth. And so even if we spent the time calling them out, they could just continue to deny it. And so what's the point? What I'm going to do instead is focus on the things that we can control, and that way hopefully you can spot the lies. The first truth that you must come to terms with is that you cannot stay shredded and build a significant amount of muscle as a natural. Now, a lot of these guys will make you believe that you can stay at 8% body fat and continue to build muscle and improve year after year. But you can't. And this is what I describe to my clients as the natty conundrum. Imagine a triangle with these 3 headings: natural, lean, and big. i.e., if you are natural and lean, chances are you are not very big. If you are lean and big, chances are you are not natural. Cool, so now that's out of the way, why can't we stay shredded and build muscle as a natural? Well, the main reason is hormones. When your body fat as a man gets to below 10%, or as a woman gets much below like 18 to 20%, your body is in survival mode, i.e. it thinks that there is a threat to its survival. And so if your body barely has any fat or calories to support your normal bodily functions, muscle building becomes a massive luxury that your body can't afford. And so as a result, it just minimizes your ability to do that and focuses on surviving. Now, this is where things change for steroid users, because while a natural trainee at 8% body fat would feel like death and be running on their reserves, someone who is enhanced could be like 6% body fat and have 80% of those effects mitigated. Like, they will still feel something because they're humans, but it will be nowhere near as severe as a natural trainee. And so of course, when they appear to be absolutely bone shredded year round and continue to improve, you now know why. Now, another point that we should bear in mind is something called a body fat settling point. Scientifically, there has been shown to be a body fat range that each individual person falls into. For example, some people will feel more comfortable at 15% body fat than they would at 10% body fat, and the opposite is also true. There are outliers that naturally feel more comfortable at lower levels of body fat, like maybe 7 or 8%. And so a small percentage of people can stay at 8% body fat and still build muscle. But for the vast majority of us genetic peasants, for want of a better phrase, this just isn't feasible. But this isn't all doom and gloom. You can still stay relatively lean and build muscle, just not shredded. And so I encourage my clients to try and stay between 10 and 15% body fat when you're building muscle. Or if you're not one of these people that can stay leaner, then try and stay below 20, because aesthetically, when you get above like 18% body fat for a man, or like 26 to 28% body fat for a woman, most people won't like how they look and will be forced to stop their bulk. So you can stay decently lean, but just note that you can't stay shredded. Moving on to point number 2, and that is you cannot continue to make newbie gains forever. Newbie gains are that initial bit of muscle that you build when you first started training. Now, for most people, in your first year of training, you can gain somewhere in the region of 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. Some people argue 20 pounds, but I would say that's more for genetic outliers. I remember when I first started training and I gained in my first year something close to the 10 pound mark. I think it was like 9 pounds. And it was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, I've gained so much muscle. If I continue in 3 to 5 years, I might end up looking like Arnie. How wrong I was, because the gains drastically slowed down after like my second or third year. And at that stage, I was disappointed. I thought I was doing something wrong. As I started to do my research, I realized that you cannot build muscle forever as a natural. Now, while we're here, let me clear something else up. Another thing that gets impacted the deeper you get into your training journey is your ability to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. In your first year, while you're making all those gains, because everything is new to your body, you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time pretty well. The more you go into your training journey, the harder that is to do, and matter of fact, take it from experience, you will literally go through a whole year trying to do two things at the same time, build muscle and lose fat, and you'll be literally seeing nothing happen to your body. Like, you will be staying the same. And so the deeper you get into your training journey, the more you must commit to a goal, either build muscle or lose fat, to see significant progress. I see so many people make this mistake and spin their wheels and get nowhere fast. And you wonder why they get demotivated, because they're literally seeing no progress. They're trying to get a bit leaner and lose their belly fat while trying to grow their arms and their chest. It just doesn't happen that way. I did a video on this, how to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, and explain the rare situations that this can happen in another video. Definitely check that out. But yeah, you need to commit to one goal as you get deeper into your training journey. Stop trying to do both at the same time. So that debunks the myth of main gaining, which is a popular term in the fitness industry which people use to describe the process of losing fat and building muscle at the same time. If you are in your first year of training as a new lifter, by all means main gain, because you're going to see significant progress. If you've gone past like the second year of training, I wouldn't recommend it, because you're going to just get very frustrated. Moving on to point number 3, and this is kind of linked. After your first 5 years of proper and consistent training, as a natural trainee, you have built your base physique and have pretty much built 90+% of the muscle that you will ever build. Now, that is probably one of the most painful truths that I struggled to come to terms with. I was gaining quite a lot in the first 5 years, and then my muscle gains got painfully slow. And I see other people at this stage of training and they think they're doing stuff wrong. And they're like, I'm doing everything right. I'm sleeping, I'm eating, I'm training, and nothing is happening. And I just smile, because I'm like, welcome to the world of a natural trainee. That is our reality. Now, I want to caveat this with a few things. The first is that if you are someone who is inconsistent, someone who is on and off the wagon, someone who is constantly stopping and starting, you may gain muscle for 10 to 15 years, but you wouldn't have gained any more muscle than you would have had you just gone hard for 5 years. Instead of gaining like 10 pounds of muscle in your first year, you might gain like 2 and then 3 the next year, if you get my drift. So those people might think they can continue to make gains, but the principle is still true. You're just not very efficient. And that's kind of linked to the second point. If you are not optimizing your training, nutrition, and rest protocols, you can continue to gain muscle for a very long period of time. But again, not more muscle than you would have gained had you just gone in for 5 years. And the third factor is genetics. Going back to that figure I gave about most people being able to gain 10 to 15 pounds of muscle in their first year of training, the truth is that those with poor genetics may gain a lot less, like 3 to 5 pounds of muscle. And those with great genetics can probably gain like 20 or maybe even more than 20 pounds of muscle in their first year of training. Unfortunately, it is what it is. That's just the hand you were dealt. And so the thing to be aware of here is that if you have someone who is truly natural and gained 20 pounds of muscle in their first year, beware of buying their programs, because they didn't gain that amount of muscle because of their training strategy. They gained it because of their genetic potential. And so you could follow every single element of their training program and be absolutely nowhere near them. The final thing to bear in mind is that when I'm talking about these numbers, I am speaking strictly about muscle tissue. A lot of people go on these dreamer bulks and gain like 15-20 kilos of muscle, or like 30 to 40 pounds, and they're like, oh, I bulked up in my first year. The vast majority of that is fat and water, so that doesn't count. I'm speaking here about lean body mass that has been added to your frame. The fourth truth you must come to terms with as a natural trainee is that when you look your best, you will look tiny in clothes. I.e., when you are shredded as a natural, you look amazing on the beach, you look amazing in photo shoots and with your shirt off. But the second you put on a t-shirt or a blazer, you look tiny, like you go missing in those clothes. I hear so many people come to me and say they want to get shredded and they want to fill out their clothes, and I'm just laughing because I'm like, that just doesn't exist for the vast majority of natural people. And the opposite is also true. When you are filling out clothes, t-shirts, shirts and jackets as a natural, you are probably bulked, i.e. if you took your shirt off, you probably won't see much definition and you'd probably look quite bloated. Now, you can have the best of both worlds at a push if you are natural, but you would need to have built a significant amount of muscle. And that's because when you have more muscle, you look leaner and better at higher levels of body fat. And so I always tell my clients, I could be like 13 or 14% body fat at a push and still see my abs, whereas most people would need to be 11% body fat or less to see theirs. So it can work, but generally, if you're single digit body fat as a natural, you're not going to look very big in clothes. If you're around 12 and you have a decent amount of muscle, then maybe that could work. Maybe, but you're still much smaller than you'd look on a bulk. And the final point to bear in mind is that 90% or maybe even 95% of the programs written out there by influencers and celebrities that actually look good. Let me caveat that. Not every celebrity and influencer, but the physiques that we actually admire and want to look like, the guys with crazy aesthetics, most of those programs have been written by people on steroids. And so when you follow along these programs, you cannot recover the same way that they would. One of the main benefits of steroid use is the increased recovery capacity. You can absolutely smash a muscle group and recover in like 24 to 36 hours. Whereas if you did it naturally, it might take you like 3 days to recover. And so a lot of people follow along these programs and get injured and they're like, oh, I couldn't finish it. If I could only finish it, it would have worked. But you would never have been able to finish it because you are not on steroids. So bear that in mind when you follow these extravagant programs. As a natural, face facts, you can probably only handle about 50% of the volume, or maybe even only 30% of the volume that someone who's enhanced can handle. So yeah, bear these points in mind next time you see someone who's like 100 kilos and shredded. In most cases, you're not going to be able to attain that naturally. And if you don't believe me, look at the natural bodybuilding federations. These are bodybuilders at the top of their game naturally with amazing genetics. And these guys on stage at like 6 to 7% body fat, some of them are like 80 kilos, 75 kilos. So when you see someone walking around 100 kilos shredded and they're claiming to be natural, you should definitely raise an eyebrow. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully this video manages your expectations and goes some way to solving the steroid pandemic. Don't forget to drop this video a like if you did find it helpful. Comment below, let me know which one of your favorite influencers or celebrities you think are on steroids. I may or may not give you my opinion in the comments. Let me know what you think of my setup also. We've spent some time and money leveling up on the setup. I told you I would. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.